I understand the next call is a split call. Sue Moroney.
Sure is. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, look, I think anyone listening to this debate cannot help but see where the passion for education in this House lies. Clearly it's on the opposition benches and not with the government. Those dry, boring speeches where they have tried to distract from the real issues are not fooling anyone, because our children, the children of this nation, are being used as guinea pigs, Mr Speaker, as guinea pigs. And that wouldn't be quite so bad if we thought it might work. But given that we know it almost certainly won't work because of what we've seen overseas, it is absolutely criminal that that party, that government, are using this charter schools legislation to use our children as guinea pigs. And what's behind this? What is all behind it? Well, two things. They clearly do not value teachers. They have had it in for teachers since they got into government, Mr Speaker. They started off with early childhood education, where they scrapped the funding for 100% qualified teachers, and they now are on to the compulsory sector, and they want to scrap teachers in the compulsory sector as well. And the vehicle for that is this legislation, bringing in charter schools where they do not have to employ qualified teachers. What has the national government got against teachers? Every teacher in this country needs to listen to this debate and understand that the national government doesn't like teachers, doesn't want them in front of the children of this nation. And all the parents need to understand that that government doesn't want quality teaching in front of their children, because this is just another slant at their failed attempt to increase class sizes. They couldn't get away with that, but they want to get away with dumbing down education by introducing charter schools. So it's about not valuing teachers, but it's also about privatising our education system, because their rich mates want to get their hands on taxpayer funding in education, and that's the other motivation for this. And for all the bluff and bluster about how concerned they are about Māori achievement and Pacifica achievement in our education system, why didn't the government listen to what Ngāi Tahu had to say when it came before the Select Committee? Because Ngāi Tahu said that they didn't support this legislation because they thought that the introduction of charter schools would lead to corruption and fraud because of the privatisation agenda. But importantly, they said that poverty is the largest factor in the underachievement of Māori and Pacifica students. That government, week in and week out, refuses to deal with poverty in this country. It refuses to even measure poverty in this country. And that, if they were serious about dealing with underachievement for those children, they would deal with the underlying issue of poverty, but they refuse to. Instead, they are treating our children as guinea pigs through this legislation. And they're doing it in a way where they're hiding it from the public, because those charter schools will not have any scrutiny under the Official Information Act or from the Ombudsman, and I think that just about says it all. But one of the really frightening things that I saw when I was on that Select Committee, Mr Speaker, was actually a fantastic submission. Well, it wasn't a submission, it was a briefing actually, from a parent activist from New Orleans, a woman by the name of Karen Harper Royal, who came to warn us off charter schools. She told us that in New Orleans they had shut down perfectly good state-funded schools, and they had used that to bring in the privatised charter school model. Where, Mr Speaker, does that remind you of? New Orleans had had a natural disaster. Christchurch has had a natural disaster. And guess what? That government are up to exactly the same thing in Christchurch. They are closing down perfectly good state-funded and state-operated schools, and they are doing that in order to make way for this guinea pig, this trial situation of charter schools. That's what they are doing to some of the most vulnerable children in Christchurch and up and down New Zealand.
I call Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou te whare